1 hour ago, judge orders Ellen DeGeneres arrest after Twitch's recording is played in Diddy's trial. In an unprecedented legal development this morning from the Superior Court of California, Judge Harrison Trent has formally signed arrest warrants for media personality Ellen DeGeneres following the unsealing and playback of a previously undisclosed audio recording left behind by the late Stephen Twitch boss. The decision marks a dramatic escalation in the ongoing high-profile trial of entertainment mogul Sean Diddy Combs, whose legal proceedings have already been rocked by allegations of conspiracy and trafficking. The evidence in question is a newly submitted encrypted voice memo reportedly recorded by Twitch just weeks before his untimely death in December 2022. For the first time, this audio was played publicly in court yesterday, shifting public perception of what had once been accepted as a tragic suicide into something far more complex and potentially criminal. The ramifications were immediate and seismic. Legal teams scrambled to prepare responses, reporters were ushered out and then readmitted, and the judge, stone-faced and composed, took only minutes to authorize a federal arrest warrant against one of television's most influential figures. But what exactly did the recording reveal, and how did it lead to Ellen? Let's rewind. The first 4 words Twitch spoke on the recording were chillingly clear: asterisk, this isn't random. Asterisk, his tone was calm, measured, and resigned, the kind of voice you hear when someone has decided the truth may be the only thing they have left. I don't know who will hear this, he continued. But if they find me, if they say it's suicide, no. This isn't random. This is because of what I know. What I saw. What followed wasn't an explosion, it was a slow leak, a step-by-step verbal map of pressure, paranoia, and parties. Not ordinary parties, but the kind that start well after midnight in hotel penthouses booked under fake LLCs. These exclusive gatherings, often held in secrecy, are now at the center of a legal storm that could redefine the boundaries of privacy, consent, and accountability in the entertainment industry. The kind of parties that Diddy, who now stands trial on conspiracy and trafficking charges, allegedly orchestrated, funded, and protected. I went with Ellen, Twitch says on the tape. She told me to smile. Told me everyone in that room was safe, but it didn't feel safe. It felt like I was being watched. Like I was being picked. His voice shook, but just once. He never said the word blackmail, but he didn't have to. Stephen Twitch boss was mourned publicly, globally, a fan favorite for years on the Ellen DeGeneres show. His death in late 2022 was met with candlelight vigils, tributes from celebrities, and a flood of social media grief. Official reports ruled it a suicide. A note was found at the scene, but its contents were never released in full. At the time, authorities said only that the note referenced personal struggles. But as the courtroom listened to the memo word for word, a different picture began to emerge. In it, Twitch described his growing unease with the circles he was moving in, how his role with Ellen took him deeper into exclusive social spaces where things weren't as they seemed. He mentioned names, not full names, but initials and descriptions, E and S, and a billionaire producer with an East Coast compound. More importantly, he described patterns, calls from blocked numbers, late-night requests to appear at events, NDAs signed without reading, and a chilling final sentence: if anything happens, don't just look at Diddy. For years, Ellen DeGeneres stood as a cultural icon, comedian, daytime trailblazer, and champion of positivity. But the cracks in her image began to show in 2020 when dozens of former employees accused her of presiding over a toxic workplace rife with intimidation and racism. Ellen issued a public apology, ratings dropped, but for the most part, her brand survived. Now, that brand faces a reckoning. The audio recording directly implicates Ellen as not just a bystander but an active participant in the spaces where Twitch felt most unsafe. I was with her, he said. She told me everything was fine, but I think she knew. I really do. Following the tape's release, multiple former show staffers have come forward anonymously, claiming they were instructed not to ask questions about Ellen's personal friendships with certain industry figures, including Diddy. Others described an atmosphere of deep surveillance and control, both during the show's heyday and after its cancellation in 2022. Judge Harrison Trent is no stranger to high-profile cases. His decision to greenlight the arrest warrant against Ellen was not impulsive. Court documents show that prior to the audio's reveal, federal investigators had already begun mapping financial transactions and travel records connecting Ellen to several undisclosed engagements hosted by Diddy between 2019 and 2021. Two of those events coincide with locations named in witness testimony about so-called after-hours rooms, spaces where cell phones were banned, staff rotated hourly, and security was operated by third-party firms with no visible affiliation. At one such event, Twitch had allegedly been invited as a friendly face by Ellen herself. "It wasn't like the show," he said on the tape. She wasn't Ellen that night. As news of the warrant spread, public opinion splintered. Some fans rallied behind Ellen, pointing to her long record of philanthropy and public advocacy. Others took to social media under the hashtag Justice for Twitch, demanding accountability, not just from Ellen, but from an industry long accused of protecting its own. At press time, Ellen's legal team has denied all allegations. No arrest has been made, but sources close to the case say authorities are in contact. Behind it all remains one haunting truth: the man who danced for millions may have died trying to say something that no one wanted to hear, until now. That haunting truth, Stephen Twitch boss may have died trying to say something no one wanted to hear, brings us to the next explosive revelation in this unraveling case. We return to the courtroom, day 2, less than 24 hours after Judge Harrison Trent issued the warrant for Ellen DeGeneres. The prosecution moved quickly, introducing new evidence directly linked to the first voice memo. This wasn't just about what Twitch said, it was about what he left behind. For the first time, the court heard a second recording titled simply Final Draft 4E. Analysts confirmed it was recorded 3 days before his death. Twitch's tone had changed, it was no longer just a confession. It was a goodbye. "I tried to believe you," he said. "I really did. You said it was normal, that people who talk too much disappear because they want to. But I know that's not the truth. I know what I saw. I know who was there. If you're listening, then it's already too late." And with those words, the entire atmosphere shifted. Because it wasn't just what Twitch said, it was what he named: specific dates, locations, flight numbers. 2 of them matched previous party dates tied to Sean Diddy Combs. One placed Ellen there directly. Investigators traced Ellen's private jet to Los Angeles on both weekends in question, December 11, 2021, and April 9, 2022. While her public schedule said she was on break or working remotely, hotel staff at the Highland Viceroy confirmed a penthouse suite was reserved under an alias tied to one of Ellen's shell companies. That suite, same floor as Diddy's event. Even more damning, guest records, previously unreleased, showed Stephen Boss listed under entertainment. A source inside the investigation later told our team, "We were tracking Diddy, we didn't expect Ellen's name to surface, but the paper trail is too clean to ignore." And then there's Allison-Hulker, Twitch's widow. Until now, the public viewed her as a grieving mother navigating unimaginable loss. But after prosecutors disclosed sealed financial records, a new layer emerged. Allison had accepted a settlement from an undisclosed entertainment entity just weeks after Twitch's death, officially labeled a legacy disbursement. The payment totaled over $3.2 million. When questioned, her spokesperson said it was a structured payment related to residual earnings and estate management. But legal experts quickly raised concerns. "No one pays $3 million in residuals unless they're paying for silence," said entertainment attorney Rel Barnes. That figure screams pre-litigation hush money. The court has now subpoenaed all related communication between Allison and her legal counsel from November 2022 to March 2023. As these revelations surfaced, former staffers from the Ellen DeGeneres show began to break ranks. 3 ex-producers, speaking under condition of anonymity, shared consistent patterns: off-limits conversations about Ellen's private guests, frequent mentions of after-parties where crew were told not to ask questions, a culture where silence was part of the job. One recounted a chilling moment during the show's final season: Twitch came in late one morning. Didn't say much. Just sat down and stared at the floor. Ellen asked, "You good?" He said, depends who's watching. Court records show that Twitch left a total of 3 audio files. The third so far remains unplayed. Its title, If They Say I Gave Up. Judge Trent has stated that the file will be admitted once relevancy and authenticity are beyond dispute. Until then, speculation grows. What's known is that metadata shows it was recorded just 12 hours before his death. Sources close to the family confirm it was stored in a password-protected drive, only recently unlocked through forensic access. The FBI has since classified the contents, but 2 lines transcribed by investigators have already been leaked to the press. I love my family. I love dancing. But they're going to say I gave up. And that's the part that hurts most. Since the unsealing of the arrest warrant, Ellen has not made any public statements. Her legal team issued one statement calling the charges deeply misguided and entirely without basis. But outside her Montecito compound, silence reigns, no movements, no scheduled appearances, no denials from Ellen herself. And that silence, once her brand, is now the loudest sound in the case. The trial is expected to resume on Monday. Prosecutors are pushing for the third memo to be played in open court. Ellen's team is lobbying to suppress it under privacy and hearsay exemptions. Meanwhile, the Ellen DeGeneres show is no longer just a cancelled talk show, it's a case study in how far image can stretch before it snaps. Steven Twitch boss is gone, but his voice, his real voice, is finally being heard. And for the first time in years, Ellen may no longer be holding the mic. Her carefully worded confession did little to stem the tide. Within hours of the video going live, digital platforms were flooded with calls for deeper accountability. The headlines sharpened, Ellen admits guilt, but will the system follow? A crowd gathered outside Warner Brothers studios that evening, not in protest of one individual, but in mourning for the illusion many had held for years. Posters read, "He danced so you could smile. You looked away when he cried." Candles were lit, not for punishment, but for reckoning. Inside the legal sphere, prosecutors wasted no time. They pivoted sharply, now framing the case as a cultural cover-up rather than a celebrity scandal. The investigation expanded, reaching beyond Ellen, beyond Diddy, into the ecosystems that enabled years of silence. Talent agencies were issued subpoenas. Former party attendees, high-level executives, entertainment lawyers, even city officials, were summoned for private testimonies. Some began to cooperate, and that's when new documents surfaced. Buried in the metadata of Twitch's cloud storage, previously missed by both family and law enforcement, was a folder marked Archived Contracts and Quiet. It contained scanned NDA documents, timestamps, signatures, and shockingly, email threads between assistants and publicists referring to handling optics. One line, sent from a burner account to an executive PR firm, read, "If he leaks, pivot to mental health, we've used it before." The courtroom was no longer just trying a case, it was peeling back layers of Hollywood's social armor. And amid the legal escalation, another name re-entered the frame, Diddy. Silent throughout the past days, he filed a motion through his attorneys requesting immunity for cooperation. His legal team argued that while he hosted the parties, others created the expectations. Implicit in that wording was a target, a shift away from the narrative that he alone controlled the darker currents of those midnight gatherings. In a sealed proffer obtained through a court leak, he did more than redirect blame, he identified Ellen not just as an attendee, but as an active recruiter. According to the document, Ellen's role extended to recommending guests, particularly those within her circle of influence, artists, assistants, even dancers who were seeking favor. One name in particular was underlined by investigators, Stephen Boss. By now, it was no longer theory. A legal case was forming around the idea that Twitch had been strategically invited, reassured, then left unprotected once he saw too much. Back on social media, the tone changed. Support became sorrow. Sympathy curdled into fury. A hashtag began trending globally within hours, hashtag he tried to leave. Allison-Hulker, up to this point quietly navigating the media pressure, finally broke her silence again, not in a studio, but outside the courtroom, flanked by her legal team and members of the Boss family. She read from a single page. He wasn't broken. He was betrayed. He wasn't depressed. He was disillusioned. He loved life, but not the one he was forced to live in silence. The only mistake he made was trusting people who mistook his kindness for consent. The statement ended with a new request, a formal inquest into whether Stephen Boss had been coerced, threatened, or drugged in the days leading up to his death. The motion was filed that same afternoon. What came next shattered any remaining ambiguity. Security footage recovered from a hotel suite previously tied to one of the parties showed Twitch entering visibly tense. At his side, Ellen. The two spoke briefly in the elevator, no sound, but the body language was clear. He shook his head. She gestured downward. He turned away. She touched his arm. He froze. The last time the two were ever seen together in public was 3 days later, during a light-hearted social media post celebrating the show's upcoming finale. The days that followed were unlike anything the entertainment industry had faced before. This was not a scandal, it was a collapse. Not a cancellation, but a confrontation. A slow-burning truth now undeniable was dismantling decades of curated charisma, protective contracts, and institutional denial. The public demanded more than accountability, they wanted transformation. And so the fallout intensified. The California State Attorney's Office, under mounting pressure, confirmed a formal inquiry into the entertainment ecosystem's use of coercive NDAs, especially those used to silence lower-level employees, contractors, and performers. At the center of this inquiry, the Ellen DeGeneres Show, its affiliated production companies, and over a dozen guest lists tied to parties now referred to in the media simply as the Midnight Floors. But amid the legal chaos, the personal toll grew heavier. Allison-Hulker, already navigating grief and media hostility, revealed that her family had received anonymous threats. Her children were pulled from school after paparazzi began camping outside their home. In a joint statement with her attorney, she asked for privacy but also issued a warning: the people who want this buried aren't finished. They've lost their shield. So now they'll target the witnesses. She wasn't exaggerating. Within a week, 2 former assistants from Diddy's event staff rescinded their statements. One claimed intimidation. The other disappeared from all social media. Meanwhile, a prominent Hollywood fixer, long rumored to specialize in reputation damage control, was found to have scrubbed references to key parties and guest photos from multiple online servers. When confronted by federal investigators, she invoked her Fifth Amendment rights. What emerged was a chilling reality: the truth Twitch died trying to expose wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. And yet, more voices emerged. An anonymous letter was delivered to the court, postmarked from Nevada, handwritten in looping cursive. It contained no sender's name but described in agonizing detail a similar party from 2017. The victim, unnamed, was a young actor. The details mirrored Twitch's own recordings: dark penthouse windows, mandatory phone drop-offs, and Ellen arriving late but giving instructions to the room. The letter ended with one line: "I thought I was alone. Now I know I'm not." Verified by handwriting analysts and circumstantial metadata, this letter became a turning point. It gave weight to what many feared, that Twitch wasn't the first and wouldn't have been the last. In response, an independent commission was formed, the Artist Integrity Review Board. A coalition of legal experts, former performers, and trauma specialists tasked with creating a system to document abuses without fear of retaliation. For the first time, there was a pipeline for stories to surface safely, and stories came. So many, in fact, that a backlog formed within weeks. As for Ellen, her silence returned, this time enforced by legal restrictions. She was formally charged with obstruction of justice and criminal conspiracy to suppress evidence. But what truly shifted public sentiment was not the charge sheet, it was the sentencing hearing. Standing before the court, Ellen didn't read from a script. She didn't bring a lawyer to speak for her. She walked to the microphone, paused, and said, "I stopped listening when I should have started. I laughed when I should have asked. And I'll carry that forever." No tears. No excuses. Just one final statement before being escorted from the courtroom. I hope they remember me for the good I did, but I know they won't forget this. She was sentenced to 2 years of restricted freedom, an experimental accountability program combining monitored residence, financial restitution to victims, and mandated cooperation with ongoing investigations. Some saw it as leniency. Others called it justice served with restraint. But for the people closest to Stephen Boss, it was something else entirely. On what would have been Twitch's 42nd birthday, a public memorial was held in downtown Los Angeles. Thousands gathered. Dancers from every corner of the industry performed choreographed pieces, some to music he helped produce, others in silence, letting movement carry the words that never got to be said. Allison stood on stage, not to grieve, but to speak. He wasn't a headline. He wasn't a hashtag. He was a father, a creator, a friend to so many of you. And today we dance not because he's gone, but because he finally told his story and the world listened. From the audience, someone shouted, "He didn't give up." And the crowd repeated it loud, over and over, "He didn't give up." In that moment, the narrative changed forever. Stephen Boss would not be remembered as a man who broke, he would be remembered as the man who broke the silence.